Excuse me, I was hoping I wouldn't cough. What I would like to do is give you an intro and some encouragement that there's going to be tons and tons and tons of stuff written about this and some strategies for doing a beginning review. So, what that means is we're not looking for specifics because we don't know what the specifics are. So, we're doing kind of like a kind of information gathering. And as we do information gathering, you take notes, whether it be on a piece of paper or in note taking software. This is OneNote, it's a free one. But you could do Google Drive or in Word files or anything like that. But we want to find out what's the convention, how are people talking about this. So I'm going to give you some starting tips, and then along with this, we can schedule to meet in the coming week. So to start out with, I looked at what you had written, and I've de-identified everything. So we know the context is human development, but also social policy. That's an important key that I can help navigate. School format options, I was guessing this was like in person or online or distanced or like alternate days. There's probably a ton of different options. I remember one of them at the beginning of one of the fall semesters, we all sat like 6 meters from each other wearing masks, and the teaching zone was like a no-go zone. The teacher couldn't go out and no one could come into that zone. It was really weird. So I'm guessing that's what that is. And then also, our context is COVID-19. And I thought, well, that's kind of, there's like probably tens of thousands of articles written on COVID-19. So I was thinking what drove the modes might have been lockdown. So as we experiment, we can validate and see what's going on. And also, we're looking at parents as a population. How did it impact parents? So that was the easiest one to start with. So let me show you the places that I would go to are education database, and a public policy database. And we'll throw one in sociology because they're kind of like in the middle of both of those. When you go into an education database, there's a lot of overlap with the public policy database and overlap with sociology, but it focuses on education and how they're responding to things. So let's go in. So from the Marriott Library homepage, we could do some initial searches in here, but I'm going to go straight into the databases since we have such a focus on the population and the period of time. If you're unfamiliar with the databases, it's really handy to know that if you go by subject, whoever the librarian is for each of these subjects has chosen their favorite database at the top. So education full text. This database is fantastic because it's been well funded for a long time. There's kind of some bad times, but it's still kind of like so much public policy is driven by information or disinformation about what's happening in our K through 12 system. And let's go to advanced search. And our population that we're interested in is parents. But the article might talk about it in any of these different iterations. So there's my first one. Parent or parents or parenting. What that means is it's going to look up parent. When it can't find any more that have parent in the title keywords or the abstract, then it'll go on to the next keyword, and then it'll go on to the next word till we have a nice big pile. Because we want this to be very focused, let's look just in the title of the article itself. And then our next one, this is where we're experimenting. If we did COVID-19, there might be like too much. But if we look for lockdown, oh, look at that. There's other ones. Lockdown or quarantine or shutdown or stay at home order. So sometimes they suggest some other ones. Let's just start with lockdown. And let's have that be in the title as well. So if parents are in the title and lockdown is in the title, we can assume that there might be a lot of the impacts of what parents are going through. Here's hoping. Fingers crossed. And again, we're looking at like a zillion articles in here. So what's the worst that could happen? We might have to expand, or we might have to contract. Oh, there's only 64. Oh, parents' distress. There must be criteria for the mental health quality of distress. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. And here we're looking for stuff in the United States, but it's okay to look out when we're just trying to figure out what language people are using. We're everywhere but the United States. Parenting stress, parents' influence. Oh, did I accidentally find something that was actually pretty good? And that's not a very big sample. 64. You could go through the titles. Lockdown might have been good, but what we can do is we can go through the subjects right here, and we can see what are other things being used. These are subjects or keywords that are supplied for the author for each article, and they're compiled in this greatest hits list. So most of them used stay-at-home orders, but some of them used pandemic. So you might, if you wanted to expand beyond the lockdown, you could use that as a keyword instead. Parent attitudes, parenting, parent-child relationship. Oh, whoa, there's like tons. Distance ed is one of the modes. I was thinking Zoom, but it's not all about Zoom, is it? Psychological resilience, psychology of parents, stress variables, yada, 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 yada. Okay, that was a successful search. What would happen? And so we might go, okay, this one was really good, but let's try COVID instead. And then we get 540, even though that's in the title. So this is where you would experiment and then go, well, maybe COVID-19 was too open and we needed more of like lockdown or shutdown or stay at home. And how would you do that? Stay at home. If it's more than one word and you want it to be a phrase, you put it in quotes. So let's try that. So we had 54 with just lockdown. So let's look up lockdown or stay at home. Again, just in the title. So we had 54 before, and now we've got 72. Or did we have 64? At any rate, we can start to see the precedence and the validation of keywords that we're picking. Okay, that's the first database. I'm going to open up the library homepage again because I want to cut and paste my keywords. And I want to look at public policy this time. Because I don't think we have a public policy field of study at the university. Political science, public administration, that might be the right one. But I know my favorite public policy database is called PAIS. I'm not sure that's going to show up at the top of anyone's list. I love PAIS. It was terrible a few years ago, but then all of a sudden something changed and they got like a really rich data set of scholarly articles. Let's try that same search. So now we're not in education. Now we're in governments reacting, acting, validating, experimenting. And parents as a population is a great keyword to start with. Parents or parenting. And do we want our context to be education? We can do that. Since we're not in an education database, let me get the title here first. Document title. Document title. We might have to, in this database, do school or schools or education. What else do we have? Looks like that might cover it. And that could be anywhere. We just want that to be, we want to make sure that we're not getting parents locked down, stay at home that's unrelated to schools or education. And we don't have to put public policy in this one because that's where we are. One result. Oh my. Educational inequalities. So let's go back and let's take out that education or schools and see what they have. Oh, there's only one. So for public policy, it's interesting. They didn't really have all that much. Remember what I said about having to broaden a search result? Let's just go look anywhere. Shh. surely this must be part of a public discussion. Because some states in the United States were like, we're never going to close. Oh, there we go. Physical well-being. And now, let's try and add, so it's not in the title, but let's try and add that education, school or schools or education. Schools or education. Are there other synonyms for schools? Maybe K through 12? Yeah, look at that. So this one you would have to narrow down a bit more. I would say we don't need stuff that's beyond, we only want stuff that's from our current decade. That's not going to narrow it down very much. So do you see how you go through these things? You kind of expand and contract depending on the body of data that you're examining. Let me show you one more. I'm going to take this whole search. Do you see how they spelled it out into brackets? These are, whoops. This is like a, oh, fiddlesticks. Third time's the charm. This, so you see in parentheses one search concept, and then there's an and in between, then there's another parentheses concept. These are Boolean operators, and this is a search string. So you could copy this into any database. So let's try sociology. So public policy is typically case studies where people are looking at things in the context of like what a city did. But let's go to sociology, or a state or a country. Let's look at sociology, because this will be the like group psychology. Ooh, a psychology database might be a good one to go into as well. But we'll get you started, and then you dig around, and then we can see where we go from there. So now we're in sociology, group psychology, communities, cultures, beliefs, some government. $4,000. So this might be one where you go in, anxiety and trust in times of health crisis, how parents navigated health risks. Look at that. That's great. Again, it's Denmark. Maybe one of our keywords could be the United States or a specific state. But this is one where you could like go back in and select title in the advanced search. One last one I want to show you is if you feel confident in your keywords and you want to go across all the disciplines and see just the greatest, the most cited, the highest impact things, there's a database called Web of Science, Web of Knowledge. They keep changing the name. Oh, Web of Knowledge, Web of Science. Web of Science looks across STEM, humanities, social sciences, and it's only the top tier or most respected journals. And you can also see who's linking to what. So let's try that search and then sort by the number of times each article's been cited and see which ones are the most important article by the votes of like who got cited. That'll make sense in a moment. You could spell out the search again like we did before where it's just in the title, but I'm going to use that search string. So out of these 895 articles, look at that. You can see this one has 4 citation. What that means is that these 4 articles couldn't exist unless they cited this one. And we can sort by the number of times that something has been cited. Citations highest first. Da-na-na. So what you would do if you're doing a literature review is you would definitely want the highest impact articles. So this one, just published in November 2020, was so important that these 600 articles couldn't exist unless they cited this one. That's huge. That's like somebody getting tenure or getting a grant or getting a teaching award or research award, or, you know, that's a big deal. That's tangible quantitative impact. So this is a great way to go. And on this one, you can also narrow down to education and that mode of education. Does that make sense? Okay. Dig around. And do you have a citation manager? It might be helpful to, as you find an article, to save it in the citation manager. Citation manager, if you go to YouTube, type in citation managers, there's a whole bunch of different ones that you can go into. Or if you just Google citation managers, some popular ones that are free are called EndNote or Zotero. I think there's some other ones, but I think the important one is to have one where it'll save your information for you and you can always go back to it. So not just a generator, but one that'll save your citations. And we can talk about that as we go. Happy weekend, and sorry it took so long for me to get back to you. I'll reach out later this week.